What is up, you beautiful buggers? Welcome back to Budget Cars and Bikes and a new video on the GSX 1400 from Suzuki. We did actually make this video last summer, I believe, because we're now in January 2025. I lost the intro, I lost all the footage, but I've managed to find most of the footage, but I've had to make this little intro, obviously, to let you guys know exactly what we're doing. Today, we are going to fix the front forks, hopefully for around about 10 quid and in around about 10 minutes. So if you're interested in finding out how we do that at home with no special tools, keep watching and we'll get into it. So as you can see, guys, we've got the bike in a flat kind of level playing field here, as it were. I've got the jack just underneath there. I'll show you that in a second and what you need to do there, or at least what I believe you need to do there. It's not actually holding up the bike at the moment, so don't worry about that. And I've loosened off all, I've taken out the bolt, shall I say, for the front mudguard. Then I actually realised you can't get the mudguard off without taking the wheel off as well, which is a bit of a bad design in my opinion, because it means if you wanted to put a mudguard extender on, you'd actually have to take the front wheel off, which is a bit annoying. Unless I'm wrong, of course, and you can pipe in and put that in the comments below whether you think there's another way of getting that off. From what I can see, though, the only way to get the front mudguard off is to actually remove the wheel. But as we're removing the wheel, it's not going to be an issue. So the first thing we're going to need to do, apart from the mudguard, of course, is loosen off those two pinch bolts there, and then get your 24mm socket, which I'll show you now. It's actually not a socket, guys. It's one of these things here. You can find them on eBay. I'll put a link in the description for anybody's interested in that. That is the best tool for doing that. And then basically you will get your pry bar or your ratchet or whatever you want to use, and you will loosen off this huge big bolt that goes through the middle of there. If this side over here begins to spin, then effectively just tighten up these little pinch bolts here. Chances are they're a little bit loose, but generally speaking that shouldn't spin, and this shaft here should just pull straight out. And then once that shaft's out, you will need to undo these little pinch bolts here to pull out this secondary shaft, as it were, here. That'll move that spacer there back into here, and you'll just pop the wheel out. It'll all become pretty obvious as we time-lapse through this, because I'm not going to try to film it all and narrate my way all the way through it, because it would become a little bit boring and a little bit tedious for me as well, I should think. So what we'll do, first things first, I'll put you on the tripod, we'll get this front wheel off, we'll get the front mudguard off, and then we'll cut back in and see exactly where we are. Just ever so quickly before I do that, I will show you exactly what's going on underneath here for those of you that aren't aware what you need to do. You basically just get your trolley jack and a plank of wood there. I mean, it's not in exactly the way I want it. We'll move that before we lift the bike. And then you jack it up. One pump of the handle, effectively, should be enough just to lift the bike enough to get the front wheel off the ground just there. It literally takes nothing at all. You could actually get a fat person to sit on the back of the bike and it would do the same thing. Oh, the cat's come along to say hello. And it'll just lift that wheel up a little bit, and obviously then you can just remove the shaft there and get on with the job. So there we are then, the front wheel is off. As you saw, you do need to, at least I think you need to take the front wheel off to get the mudguard off, but it's off anyway, and I can give a good clean around there as well, which is be handy. I did notice actually one of the bolts, one of these little, let me just get over here a second, one of these little diddy ones here, I got a feeling perhaps something not quite right behind here. It's all looking very, it could just be that that popped out of its little hole, so just make sure they're in there before you put the screws in. But they obviously act as a kind of a captive nut, as it were, on the inside to bolt these into, so if you haven't got that, you'll have to find a nut. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I might give those a bit of a clean up. I'll give the inside of the mudguard a bit of a clean up. Why not? It's there. I've got to wait for the paint to dry anyway. So as you can see, the forks are there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a blanket and I'm going to cover all the inside of here and up and through here as well, so we don't get any kind of overspray. I might might try and do something with this brake fluid splitter up here as well, and we're going to obviously mask off the top of the fork legs here, give it all a very good wash and a degrease, and I will take out these pinch bolts as well, see if I can clean those up because I don't want to get paint on those. And then basically we'll have to get some cotton wool or something to put into the holes there for the pinch bolts and the shaft as well. And as I said, we're going to get a Scotch-Brite pad of some description. We'll rub down these fork legs and then we'll degrease it one last time and we'll start the painting. So I've got a blanket effectively, well an old sheet as it were, that I've done other painting with, and I put it just over here to protect the downpipes and the rest of the bike. Obviously we are obviously again going to mask up just here as well and possibly the top ends. I don't think we'll need to, but I'll do it that way just to be a bit belt and braces. And I put a little brick there if you're wondering what that's for. It's a little bit of a windy day, and sometimes if you're waiting for stuff to dry, you might go out for an hour, do a bit of shopping, walk the dog, you'll come back and whatever you've been putting here has blown onto what you've just sprayed. Ask me how I know. But effectively we are ready to start kind of just roughing up the area as it were that we need to paint. There's still ACF 50 all over these forks from the winter months, so we need to get rid of all that, and we'll just do that and then I will talk you through how we're going to paint them. So I think we're almost ready to start painting, guys. I've actually done everything you've seen on camera there, of course. We've cleaned everything down and I've taped off as much as I can for the top here and trying to get in underneath. There's never going to be a way to be able to do this professionally because I am not a professional. There's going to be some overspray. I don't think I've ever sprayed anything in my life where there hasn't been some kind of overspray. But this time around, I've done the sensible thing. I've done some little bits of cotton wool, as you can see, all the way down through here, these kind of places here into all the bolt holes, just to stop any kind of paint getting in there. I think it's a bit belt and braces, if I'm honest. I don't think I necessarily need to do it, but I've done it because that's the way people do it. I haven't done it on these bits here because I actually want them to go the same silver, so it seemed a bit pointless blocking them off, didn't it? It's just the external part of the bolt holes there, and obviously down here where these little bolts go here, the pinch bolts, you just got to make sure. I might get some water, just a tiny dab of water, just to make sure there's no kind of rogue cotton wool hairs sticking out, because that will stick to the paint, and obviously when you pull it off you'll see a little line. So I'll do that and then we will basically get the hammerite out and we will put our first coat on and see how we get on. So we're pretty much done, guys. As you saw there on the time lapse, we've done 4 coats, I think it was now, of the hammerite. My advice would be, if you're going to use hammerite, buy it from the shop the day you want to use it, because I had 3 old cans sitting upstairs and every single one of them was completely screwed. They just wouldn't work anymore. I don't know why. So luckily I had a fresh one anyway, so I've used that. But don't kind of try to use half an old can. That's my advice. As you can see, I did overspray everywhere because I'm bloody useless at spraying. But I think you'll agree, those results speak for themselves, don't they? That is pretty good. That is obviously just the silver smooth hammerite. There's a couple of little indiscretions in the fork legs, but this is a 20-year-old bike. There's what looks to be a stone chip there. I thought it was a drip at first, but in hindsight, I think it's probably just an old stone chip. I'm going to leave it to dry naturally outside here in the garden for the rest of the day while I go out. And basically once we're ready, and I'm happy that it's dried, because bear in mind, hammerite does take a lot longer than normal paint to dry. It stays kind of tacky and soft for days. I will probably leave this as it is until late this evening. Then I'll cover it with the cover here, trying to make sure I don't touch anything too much, and then I'll uncover it again tomorrow, let it dry in the sun again for another day. I'm going to try to leave it to cure, as it were, as much as possible before I put it all back together. You don't have to wait for that, of course. We'll cut straight back in here with me putting everything back together and how it looks and whether I think you should do it and did it work, basically. And as if by magic, it is done and dusted, and I think you'd have to agree that's spectacular. For around about 10 minutes work and around about 10 pounds of Hammerite spray paint, we've transformed these lower fork legs here. I think you'd have to agree, far easier than trying to polish them back, far easier than taking the entire forks out, sending them away, getting them powder coated, all that kind of stuff. And I think they've come out more than acceptable, especially, as I said, for about 10 minutes work and about 10 quid's worth of Hammerite. I'm hoping this has helped you out. We are going to put the calipers back on now. I'm hoping you've seen the videos on that from Powerhouse as well. We're going to basically bolt everything back up together, bleed the system, and then I'll cut back in and we'll close out the video. So we are finally done, guys. As you can see, everything is back together now. The calipers are in, we've bled the system, the pads are still in there. I'm still waiting for some new brake pads to come through. Actually, I've ordered some EBCs, but as you can see, the fork legs have come out really, really well. There's a couple of little marks, but that's purely from me running around trying to get everything back together and then bleeding the system. I kind of slipped up here and there, and we have gone for a 100-mile ride as well. It needs a little bit of cleaning. This is just crap that's come off here. A couple of stone chips here, which I couldn't get rid of with just painting them, but I think you would agree they have come out pretty spectacular, all for 10 minutes work and 10 pounds worth of Hammerite paint. So it can be done at home. You do not have to take the forks out of the top yokes and all that kind of stuff and send them away. As you can see, you can do just as good a job, in my opinion anyway, for about 10 quid and 10 minutes work or thereabouts. Anyway, I hope that's been of some interest to you guys. If it has, then please consider subscribing, give the video a like, a share, a thumbs up, all that kind of good stuff. And we will catch up in the next video in a couple of weeks. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Take care, ride safe, we'll catch up soon.